Welcome to Monday Next. We are two siblings with two different businesses, but we only have honest conversations.
I'm Scott Monday, founder of Kitchen and Bath Crate, where we've turned construction chaos into systematic excellence with guaranteed timelines and results that break every industry rule.
And I'm Meredith Monday Schwartz, the CEO of Here Comes the Guide, a wedding venue platform built on relationships instead of commissions, run by an all-women team that proves heart-forward business practices actually work.
We're siblings who spent 15 years challenging each other's business philosophies, and we finally decided to hit record. Every week, we prove there's no right way to build a great business, just audacious choices that actually work.
Right, we'll have no guests, no fluff, just the conversations that we would be having anyway. But now you get to listen in. Whether you're team heart forward or team systems first, or you're still figuring out which kind of leader you want to be, we are here for you to show you that business doesn't have to be boring, generic, or divorced from real life.
This is Monday Next.
I like how you've got a little bit of a Casey Kasem thing going today.
Oh, should I not do it?
No, it's good. It's good. It's got a little energy. It's got a little pop on it.
A little pop, a little pizzazz, a little razzmatazz. That's what I'm known for. I'm a razzmatazz guy. That's what they've always told me. Remember, growing up, middle nickname, Raz?
Everyone called you Scott Jazz Hands Monday.
Did you know my real first name is not Scott?
I knew that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you know I didn't know that until I was 10?
Mom and Dad kept it from you. Really purposefully, I felt.
I vividly remember sitting in a 5th grade class and the substitute teacher called out Darren Monday. And we were all just like, does Scott have a brother? I was like, do I have a brother? And it turns out my real name is Darren and Scott's my middle name. And no one ever told me. You didn't tell me.
Well, I mean, the whole thing with there's a few things about your first name that are a little bit odd. And I a little bit feel like it became this, let's just pretend we didn't do that moment.
That's so true. But I will say this, starting in about, 2012, 2014, having the middle names Michael Scott. Mm-hmm. Do you know, right? Michael Scott are my two middle names. And when people at work found that out, it was like, yep, it fits.
It fits. We all knew it. Exactly.
He was meant to be a Michael Scott. So, Meredith, let's talk a little bit about this last week. Let's do our Monday moment of the week. I'd love to hear something from this last week that business-wise, personal-wise, or the confluence of both really kind of stuck in your head.
Well, this last week here in the United States was our Thanksgiving week. And so it got me thinking about our conversation, Scott, that you and I had last week, where we were talking about different ways to incentivize our employees, different things that are currency to different groups of employees or even individuals. And one of the things with my group is really strategic use of holiday time. So we have a pretty generous holiday and PTO package at Here Comes the Guide. And one of the things that I like to do, for example, as soon as I took over the company, I was like, I want everyone to always get their birthday off. Because I feel like you shouldn't have to work on your birthday, right? I mean, of course we get all the regular holidays, but have your birthday off. And then I was like, you know what? That was super fun. We all should have Valentine's Day off, because everything about Here Comes the Guide is about like love and weddings and all of that stuff. So we all started having Valentine's Day off, which is fun because my husband's birthday is the day after Valentine's Day. So it always meant that like I had this extra day that I could focus on him. But then it became clear that there is another holiday that almost every person I know, especially every woman I know, wants off. And that is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Because, and again, I don't want to stereotype too much, but at least for my group of 44 women, we almost all to a person really have a lot of things that we are either in charge of, whether we're hosting or not. We're going to someone's house. There's a lot of stuff to do to prepare for Thanksgiving. having that full day, that full Wednesday of Thanksgiving off to do whatever you want to do with it, whether it's related to Thanksgiving or not, has ended up being one of the favorite things that people mention in their kind of overall package. So I was just thinking about that as it had to do with that conversation that we had last week, as I enjoyed my Wednesday holiday this week, which involved me cooking all day.
Excellent. Yeah. So what types of things did you cook? Give me a rundown.
I mean, you know better than anybody because we eat the same things on Thanksgiving. Really classic Thanksgiving over here. So just all the mashed potatoes, the stuffing, the sweet potatoes, I'm going to say to you, Scott, because you're going to know what I mean, dry Jello salad.
Dry Jello salad. We got to drop the recipe in the show notes.
I mean, yes, but it's a recipe on which I'm receiving no criticism.
No, of course not. No, this is a safe place. Monday Next,
Right.
safe place for all sorts of salad recipes.
Right. We all have that weird family recipe. This was our Grandma Riri's recipe. I have always historically been in charge of it, and I love to make it. It's my favorite thing. So just a lot of those really normal, classic Thanksgiving things for what I was doing yesterday. What did you do on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Well, very apropos for today's topic, I worked, as did the rest of my team. And my Monday moment from this last week, I was reflecting on the fact that I work in a very visual and tactile business. Like when we produce kitchen and bathroom remodels, when we produce beautiful natural stone showers, you can look at it, you can touch it, you can feel it, right? All those things are what I love about my business. When I'm done, there's something I can actually look at. My team can look at, stand back, be proud of it. And Meredith, we've just been grinding the last 2 weeks. And these 3 days right before Thanksgiving, we finished up probably the most difficult stone installation in the history of our company. And it looks fantastic. And I'm just so proud of my team, the way that they came together on a very, very difficult job. Made it difficult. Meredith, this is a 4 slab shower, meaning 4 roughly 5 foot by 10 foot slabs of quartzite natural stone, probably $4 to $5 grand per slab, came together to create a single shower. It's like a Japanese inspired design where you have a fully stone shower, you have a tile floor, and the tub is in the shower itself. So you have a tub separate from a shower, and it's all one like large shower room. It's very Japanese, very Asian inspired, super high end home. But my guys just came together and they nailed it, and it looks gorgeous. And just that satisfaction of being able to stand back and look at this with them was my Monday moment.
Oh my gosh. Can you drop a picture of that? Will you have pictures that you can drop in the show notes?
100%. Yeah.
Like a shower room? I mean, it sounds like that's what it is. It's not just a shower. It's a shower room.
It's a shower room. It is massive. Yeah.
Wow. That's very, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be difficult, but yes, the fact that you guys have that thing that you can touch, and also when we're talking about like marketing today, you guys have such a photographable business.
We do. That's one of my favorite parts about it.
Exactly. The before and like the after pictures are always so beautiful. And again, you did both my kitchen, and then you guys came back 2 years later and did our master bathroom, which I absolutely loved both, but that bathroom was so hard for us to move away from because it was so good. Those before and afters that you have for your business make me jealous because my business we don't have anything photographable like that.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And I was thinking a lot about our two businesses. We recorded episode 1 a week ago today, and I've just been, in my mind, I've been turning over our respective business models and almost like the financial signature of each business and the differences in how they can operate because of that financial signature, the difference in who we're targeting from a marketing perspective, the fact that you kind of have 2 different customers. We've talked about that over the years, right? You have the venue that's actually paying you for advertising, but you have the bride who you're trying to attract to the website,
couple,
right?
Yeah. Right, exactly. The 2 audiences, the 2 customer bases is one of the biggest challenges of our company.
Yeah. And I think that economic or financial signature of our 2 businesses, in my opinion, is really what drives today's conversation about the 4-day work week. Is the 4-day work week this pie in the sky, this, something that's not sustainable, right? Or is it something that can work really well if you have the right financial signature of your business? And so I want to dive into that today. So let's just set the table for the listener a little bit, Meredith. Why don't you describe your 4-day work week parameters, if you will? When did you start doing it? What have you seen come out of it? And then I'll briefly share with you a little bit about kind of how we're structured on a week-to-week basis. But tell us about this 4-day work week at Here Comes the Guide.
Yeah, so it is probably one of my top 3 favorite things about Here Comes the Guide. My desire to do something like this goes way back in my career. So just hang with me for a little bit of a story time. My very first big girl job, my very first job out of college, I worked for a huge top 10 law firm in San Francisco. And I was a paralegal. And I also, right when I got that job, I had 3 months earlier, I had a baby, my daughter, Devin. And so I was a very, very, very new mom, just out of college. I was 21 years old. And I started at this big new job as a paralegal at this huge firm. And of course, this firm had, I think there were 50 paralegals. The firm is unfortunately not around anymore, but at the time, I think there were 50 paralegals. So there were a lot of people who were doing what I was doing. And right from the beginning, because I had a little one, I needed to get to work, get my work done, and then I needed to get done with my, right at the end of my 8-hour workday, I needed to hightail it back to BART, and I needed to make it across the bay and get back home because I needed to pick my kid up from daycare. So I had a really structured period of time that I could be at work. And so I felt that really deeply. So the second I got to work, every minute of my day had to be incredibly maximized. I didn't have time to do anything that wasn't going to be moving the needle forward on the work that I needed to get done. But what I found is that I was working with a lot of people who did not have the pressure. I got to San Francisco and realized, not everyone at 21 is married and has a kid. Big surprise. And so my cohort, they weren't working at that same clip because they didn't have to be. What became really clear to me, I worked there for a little over 2 years, and I rose up the ranks really fast. And part of that was because I was good at my job, and part of that was that I got a lot of work done in a really timely manner. And what I realized was the people who were not trying to beat the clock like I was, they weren't trying to maximize every single moment of their day, they would overall get less work done, even though they were, air quotes, working a 60-hour week and I was working 40. But they were there at the firm 20 more hours a week than I was. So I always felt this competition. I felt really hemmed in. I felt like I had my hands tied behind my back. A lot of working moms will understand this feeling. When your competition at your job, they don't have the same, they can stay as late as they want. So it was interesting to me that I was having as good or better success in a smaller amount of hours than my cohort was. And at the time, I was very focused on, okay, so the fact of the matter is they are not working balls to the wall. They are really taking their time because the work will stretch to fill the time that you allow it. And this became my operating kind of theory. And so I went to Here Comes the Guide, and I went there with a 4-day week. When I started at Here Comes the Guide, one of the things that I negotiated was a 4-day work week, Monday through Thursday, because I wanted to feel more balance between my work and home lives. I wanted to have a day to be able to do things with my daughter that wasn't just trying to catch up from the week. So I did that for the first 3 years at Here Comes the Guide, and I only was paid Monday through Thursday. We didn't have the kind of system we have now. So I had to take a big cut to my income, but it made all the difference in the world in my home life, that better balance that I was looking for. So then once I took over the company in 2008, I have always had a maniacal focus on every hour of every day. So I said last week, I'm not looking to squeeze the juice out of every one of my employees. Like we talked about that last week.
Yes.
I am very focused. And one thing I make very clear when I do interviews with people is that I don't hire what I call pokey puppies. I am looking to hire people who naturally work at the same speed that I work at. And I've surrounded myself with that group of people. So we do our work really well with a lot of quality and intention, but we maximize every hour. We don't waste any time. So when we got to 2020, and this is the first of many times that 2020 will enter the chat in this conversation, obviously we're a wedding-related business. So in March of 2020, and as we began to go into lockdown, it became really clear that our clients, all who could no longer host weddings for the most part, were going to be really affected. So there were several things, and we'll talk about that probably in an episode devoted to how we managed 2020. But one of the things that we realized as we got to November of that year was that we were more than able, if we really intentionally maximized our work and our meetings and everything, we were more than able to, at that point, look at the entire kind of landscape of our clients and what they needed from us. And I said, now's the opportunity for us to say, let's experiment with a 4-day work week. Now, again, I want to be really clear what that means, that here comes the guide. A 4-day work week is essentially a 32-hour week of work, not 40. So they are not doing 4 10-hour days. They are doing 4 8-hour days. We work Monday through Thursday. Our office is closed on Friday. There's a lot of intention based on exactly those particular things. So we decided to experiment with it. And I said, okay, we had experimented before with what we called summer hours. So 2 summers in a row, June, July, we did summer hours, which was 4-day work weeks. And both of those times, the two in 2018 and 2019, it worked really, really well. We were making just as many sales as we had before, and people absolutely loved having that extra time. So when we did this experiment, I said, okay, we're going to start in November 2020, and we're going to run it through the end of January. And we're going to see, because that last and first quarters of the year are our 2 biggest quarters. And so I said, if we see any drop unexpectedly, we'll revisit this. But by the time I got to January, it was so clear that we were not only not seeing a drop in efficiency and effectiveness, we were seeing increases in efficiency and effectiveness. And so then we just continued to take it through. Okay, well, we'll do it for another 3 months. We'll do it for another 3 months. By the time we got to the end of 2021, I said, I'm willing to commit to this being what we do for the next year. And 2022 was a very interesting year because we started to see what we call the boomerang from COVID, meaning all of our venue clients were now back and they were ready for action. And there were all these pent up inventory weddings that people wanted to get on the books. So the wedding industry went from very slow to absolutely through the roof at levels that no one had ever seen before. And I very intentionally sat back and said, now let's see how we handle this with the 4-day work week. We have a lot of ways that we were looking at that per hour efficacy per employee so we could really get a sense of what was happening. And I was delighted to see that, again, we've had our consistently biggest years ever. Every year we've broken our record from the year before for revenue received, and we have been more profitable than ever. So there's absolutely no question in my mind from a pure numbers perspective that it has been really, really effective.
Okay, so lots of questions here. All right.
Okay.
Number 1, when you transitioned from a 40-hour week to a 32-hour week, is it safe to say that your team's take-home pay reduced by 20%?
It did not. They stayed at 100%.
Is your team hourly or salary?
So I have a mix. I have a 65-35 mix, 65% hourly, 35% salary.
Okay, so
And
you adjusted the hourly rate of the hourly employees to make it so they made the same at 32 hours as they did at 40 hours.
that's right.
Okay, so you did not reduce your overall payroll expense.
Not at all, not by a single penny.
Now, next question, was there a response from your customer in terms of did your customer give you any feedback on your team not being accessible on Fridays? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Right. This is a really interesting thing, Scott. One of the most interesting parts of this. We thought that there might be some pushback. We made this decision that we weren't going to try to cover the entire, we were literally going to say, we work Monday through Thursday, we're off on Fridays. And what we decided to do was to try to take what could be seen as a negative, like, oh, I emailed my Here Comes the Guide rep and they didn't get back to me on a Friday. And instead, what we said is, let's do an auto response that says, we work a 4-day work week and here's why. Mm-hmm. And kind of a short thing is on everybody's autoresponder that's very conversational, very much in the Here Comes the Guide tone of voice. And what we found is so many people telling us, I love that you guys are doing this and you guys are clearly making it work. And so I was worried about pushback. It ended up being a differentiating factor, one of those culture pieces that when we intentionally told our clients about it, they were like, hallelujah, that is the best, one of the best perks that you could possibly offer.
Let's dive into that a little bit because I think there is some unrealized power in how we talk to our customers about our internal culture. And in your case, you were able to explain it and it became a selling point. Mm-hmm. And that is absolutely a powerful approach with your customers. I'll give you an example from our business. We have a very detailed and precise process for delivering kitchen and bathroom remodels. Mm-hmm. Part of that process is we oversee the entire design phase and we purchase all the materials. 10% of our potential customers will ask if they can purchase the materials to save some markup. Mm-hmm. If we just said no and walked away from them, that would leave a negative taste in their mouth. But instead, we explain, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, we don't do that, but here's why. The way we are set up is we want to provide you with multiple guarantees, on-time guarantee, quality guarantee, all sorts of guarantees. The only way we can do that is if we have control of the entire process. Mm-hmm. Meredith, after we have that conversation with the customer, it switches from a potential line in the sand and a negative type of way of leaving the conversation, and it turns it into I trust these people even more because they want to take full and complete responsibility. So, Meredith, when your customers heard that the 4-day work week originated in your culture and how you want to treat your people, they were, in essence, your customers were bought in, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. We had one customer that I remember that pushed back really hard. He was a boomer guy, which is not, and most of our customers are in hospitality. They're not. But this particular client sent an email that was really nasty on that autoresponder, saying I can't believe that you would just decide to take a 3-day weekend every single weekend. This seems it was just a really nasty email that really called our integrity into question. Not in a, hey, I'm curious about this way, or hey, there's this thing I'm trying to accomplish, could you help me kind of way, but it was really like an attacking, and it was a kind of a leave it to a bunch of women to decide that they don't have to work. It was that, which of course you would guess would light my fire a little bit. And so I responded back to him myself and said, this is the way that we feel really good about moving forward with our business, and we'll just go ahead and part ways now. And it turned out he didn't want to part ways, but I said, you know what? We have no desire to do business with someone who would interact with us in this way. So we ended up losing one client, but that was our choice to lose, to part ways with him, because it was clear to me that someone who would be so reactive for absolutely no good reason, and who really couldn't get on board with what was a core value for us, which is having a company that can create a work-life balance for its employees, just wasn't the client for us. So I wonder if that's ever happened for you. I think 98% of issues can be dealt with better communication of the why behind a policy. But there's always going to be that small number that you can't turn around. And I would imagine you guys have had that happen before. Have you ever had to say to a customer about something like that, you know what, I think we're probably just not the greatest fit?
Yes. In fact, we call it firing our customers. We had to fire 2 customers in 2025, which is the first time I can remember there being 2 in 1 year. In essence, they just revealed a personality type and a potential character issue that we knew we did not want to be in relationship with for the next 2 to 4 months, depending on the scope of work. Yeah. And we try really hard when we meet with customers to be very open and upfront as to what we are and what we are not. A great example is that we are one of the higher priced entities in the market, and we have lots of reasons for that. But we try to get that type of information to the customer very early, because some people then quickly self-select out. Some people are truly looking for the lowest price, and quality and speed of execution aren't really top of their list, and that's fine. But we're just not the right fit. But yeah, this year we had to fire 2 different customers because along the way, quite frankly, they became very miserable to deal with. And one we had signed a contract with but had not yet delivered in any way. And the other we hadn't even yet signed a contract on. It was during our proposal phase. But Meredith, talk a little bit about this idea of having to part ways with customers. Do you see that as basically a requirement of a good leader to make those tough calls and sometimes save your team from those situations? Have you ever been in that spot?
Yeah, I've definitely been in that spot. And that happens not infrequently, where we will have someone who, despite my teammates' best efforts, will just continue to be difficult. And for us, difficult, okay, you can have customers that are more difficult than others. It's when it crosses into disrespect that I will step in and say, you are not going to have that kind of interaction with my team. And I will go to the mat for my team. I will, every single time, I will look at the entire situation. I will get my facts. But when I see that my teammate has done everything that she possibly can to make things right, and this person is just being a jerk, we'll fire that client. We have 6,800 wedding venue clients, so our business is different. Another way our business is different than yours is that our business is on volume. But I'm not going to have any of my teammates be disrespected at all. And I do think it's really important that people know that their leader will be on their side if they've done everything that needed to happen.
So Meredith, talk a little bit about what happens, if anything, on Fridays. Are there any members of your team that, play some type of role at Here Comes the Guide on Fridays, or maybe you're not working in the business, but you're working on the business? As a business owner, I love the windows of time that allow me to do that. So talk a little bit about what happens on Friday, if anything does happen for certain people.
As I said, and I just want to reiterate this because I think it's one of the pieces that has made it really successful for us, is that we don't say, you have 40 hours, pick when you want to work 32 of them. Right. So we don't have people kind of like ebbing and flowing with their schedules and like, well, maybe I couldn't work all day Wednesday, but I'll just work on Friday. Like, we don't do any of that. So we try to be really kind of as formal as possible about the company being closed on Friday. Now, I will tell you that we are marking the 5th anniversary of this move to a 4-day work week. And I don't think I have fully taken an entire Friday off ever. So my COO, Lisa, my director of sales, Denise, the 3 of us often are ebbing in and out of work on Fridays. I usually work Friday about half a day, partly because it is really nice to have a period of time that I know that I can devote to X, Y, and Z kind of project where I don't have other things coming at me. Other people aren't needing me. Sometimes we'll work, that group together on that particular day. But for the most part, even then, it's not a requirement at all for any of us. It's just something we opt to do. It's something that makes our work lives easier. But I do want to really specify the 32-hour work week from a culture perspective, from an expectation perspective, doesn't just apply to the hourly employees. It applies to everybody. It applies to all of my salaried employees. I don't want my salaried employees to feel that they can't take advantage of that 3-day weekend. So we try to hold it sacred. And it's important because then you have this feeling you can relax into nobody's working on Friday. You don't have to have this feeling of like, well, I don't have to work on Friday, but so many people are because it's this kind of like expectation, kind of like unlimited PTO. I will not get started on the concept of unlimited PTO because I think it's the biggest crock of crap, but it's for those reasons that I've tried to make it really clear. You work Monday through Thursday. During those days, you work hard and fast. So to further answer your question, we also try to encourage people where it is possible. It is not possible 100% of the time, but if you have a doctor's appointment, let's say you have an annual doctor's appointment, that you have some play on when you're going to schedule that because you're scheduling it a year in advance. Schedule it on a Friday. So where we can, we try to put things that will keep us butt in the seat Monday through Thursday. We try to do that on Friday. If we're going to have a friend come in for lunch, we'll arrange that to be on Fridays most of the time. And again, people can take off time Monday through Thursday. They have PTO to do just that. But as a general sense, all of us are owners of the company, and we all try really hard to be butt in the seat Monday through Thursday, working as efficiently as possible to get as much done. And I guarantee you, we get more done Monday through Thursday than most companies get done in a full 40-hour work week.
Okay, so here is where I'm going to poke the bear a little bit.
Okay.
You clearly have an exceptionally efficient team that maximizes their productivity every hour. If you could snap your fingers, not that you would, but if you could snap your fingers and have Fridays staffed in the same way by highly skilled, very efficient people working an additional 8 hours a week. Okay, maybe it's different people, maybe it's some type of phased schedule, but you're basically adding, let's say, just for numbers' sake, 40 times 8, right? 320 hours per week to the efforts of Here Comes the Guide. Wouldn't that most surely lead to additional revenue and a higher level of profitability?
In the short term, it very well may. So a couple things to that. There's two parts to my answer on that. First of all, the question of turnover. Every single time, every year we do this bit right before we do our annual get-togethers that we talked about last week, we have our people do this whole document where they're answering a bunch of questions. One of the questions we ask is, what are the 3 reasons that you continue to stay? What are the 3 biggest reasons that you stay at Here Comes the Guide? This last time, all 43 people listed the 4-day work week as one of those 3 reasons. So I think in the short term, yes. I think in the longer term, I maintain for long periods of time, gaining institutional knowledge, which is incredibly useful in our industry. People that I would otherwise not necessarily be able to keep as long without this. It's a very powerful perk.
Okay, but for the purposes of this little argument here, what if there was a way that you added people to staff that extra 320 hours a week, meaning you had some people that had Mondays off, some people that had Fridays off? And the reason I ask this, Meredith, this isn't a gotcha. This is me trying to
Sure.
to to highlight what I think is a significant difference in your business and my business, in that I view my business as a tool for maximizing profitability for ownership. Mm-hmm. And I think you, because you are an ESOP, I think you have a little bit of a different perspective than that. And the beautiful thing about it is maybe this is just a coping mechanism for me. I don't think it's I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. I think they're two different businesses that play a little bit of a different role in the lives of ownership and the lives of employees, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But would you agree with that statement that if you added those 320 productive hours a week, that it probably would increase revenue and thus profitability, but there is a decision amongst your team that that's not necessary or what people want for work-life balance? Is that fair?
Yes. And I also would say, I mean, there's no question we're a lifestyle business. There's no question that I view Here Comes the Guide as a long-running experiment in creating a very specific type of company that is a great place for women to be the best version of themselves. That's the long-running experiment that I'm performing at Here Comes the Guide. That is my legacy that I hope that I will be leaving at Here Comes the Guide. But what I will say from a logistical standpoint is it was amazing to me when we made the decision to move from 5 to 4 work days. The first thing that we did was say, okay, we remove every expenditure of time that is not absolutely on the revenue line. And it was amazing to me how much we were able to cut out in terms of, it was mostly meetings, honestly. We streamlined our schedule, and most people were like, okay, well now that was 4 hours of every week. So if I don't have to do that, I've already gained 4 hours back. So it was really interesting to me how when you have to compress it down, it is possible at least in our business, and in a lot of other businesses, not necessarily yours, because yours has some really different aspects to it that would make this more difficult. But in a lot of businesses, agency businesses, we're fully distributed, but a lot of companies that I'm in contact with, if they were to really, really look at things, I know that they could compress down to a 4-day work week and not change their overall profitability. But that tracks back to exactly what your question is. If I force my people to come back to a 5-day work week, and let's say all of them were like, you know what? No problem. There's other things I love about working at Here Comes the Guide. I still want to stay, which I think the vast majority of them probably would. There's no question that we have made a calculation that we would rather have that work-life balance over the long term than to have an additional $500,000 in revenue for a particular fiscal year.
Yeah.
So, Scott, our businesses are really, really different. But I know when you and I started talking about this, did you ever do the thought exercise of, could we make a change like this? Could I offer a 4-day work week within the bounds of your business? Like, did you automatically say that just would never work? Or did you run through the thought exercise?
No, I absolutely ran through the thought exercise, especially as I was preparing for this recording. Just because one thing I like about our relationship is we both challenge each other's assumptions. We challenge each other's, this is how we've always done it, right?
Right.
I am in an ancient industry, right? Construction, it's pretty much been around right after fire.
Right.
Yeah, like fire, construction, or maybe construction, fire. I don't know. But we have a few different roles in the business that could not be a 4-day work week. Our customers expect us to be working on their project and in their home 5 days a week.
Right.
Could we?
Because you've got that time, because you've promised them a timeline.
We promised them a timeline. Now, could we, like you've done, educate them as to why we do a 4-day work week, etc.? We could, but no matter how well we run our jobs, we are still a disruptive force in their life. We are in their homes. 95+% of our customers are living in their home during the renovation.
Right.
So to take a 4-week project and make it 4 weeks and 4 days, that extra week, especially at the end, you are on borrowed time already. They love you, but they can't miss you if you're never gone, right?
Exactly. Right. Get out of Dodge. Yes. No, I totally see that as being a major issue here.
But as we've grown I'll call it a manufacturing business, which is the stone countertop business, which is really one I'm super excited about and devoting most of my time to. We are fabricating, also known as manufacturing, really. We are fabricating large quantities of countertops for apartments and senior housing and things like that. I could absolutely see that fabrication facility going to a 4-day work week for the employees. The fabrication facility itself, I don't envision being 4 days a week. But I could see us structuring it where we had a Monday through Thursday shift, a Tuesday through Friday shift. But as we build out that business, I see that fabrication facility as needing to be running even nights, potentially, a second shift. Which really brings me to this metric that we hold dear at Kitchen and Bath Crate, and also to an extent at TBS, which is profit per day. Mm-hmm. As I boil down the metrics of our business to its essence financially, the biggest constraining factor are the work days we have to produce income. We only have 200 and something days per year that we can be in a customer's home, because most of our customers probably wouldn't want us in their home on weekends. They need a chance to recover from the rigor of the job during the week. But really, the profit we can earn per day is a metric that we've looked at as pretty much our key, most essential KPI. Mm-hmm. And that really, Meredith, flies in the face of considering our entire staff going to a 4-day work week. Mm-hmm. Now, this could come back to the motives of ownership, in essence. I am a driver. My business is exceptionally risky. It's risky from an injury perspective. It's risky from a customer not paying perspective. It's risky from a general liability and workers' comp perspective. I therefore demand my business produce the best possible return, because, Meredith, my home is literally on the line. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we don't hit our numbers, if we don't service our debt, if we don't do any of those things,
you lose
Scott and Melissa Monday are living in an RV, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that is why I have a different perspective on this, because I believe that my business needs to produce a return, because it has to make sense from a return on investment or a return on risk perspective.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I think that's a point very well taken. Is there any part of you that wishes that wasn't the case? And knowing you as well as I do, I think there's a part of you that thrives on the do or die aspect, feet to the fire aspect of things. Do you ever think, I don't think I would work as well like that?
Yeah, I don't have any chill in me. I am pushing, I'm driving. I love the thrill of all of those things. I love the risk of it. Are there times when I lament that, man, why did I get in this industry? The margins aren't that great compared to others. Why couldn't I have gone into, fill in the blank, the grass is always greener, right? Now, speaking with hundreds of business owners a year, you give me a sector, I'll tell you where it's weak, where it's challenging, where it pushes the owner to wanting to quit, right? We all have those things.
Yep.
But each business is different in how that shows
in what
up.
They are. Right. And so exactly. I think the important thing for people listening is to, if you are early days in your business, know what those things are and know how they work with your own personality. And so, I mean, right, we have risk with Here Comes the Guide, and certainly more risk than we ever imagined before we could imagine a global pandemic, for example. Who knew that that would be something that could take down the entire industry for long periods of time? But, the risks that we have work well with my particular personality and the way that I want to run the business, and yours work for you. So I think that is an interesting thing. One thing that I wanted to ask you about your business is, would you ever, okay, well, there's two questions that I want to have you answer before we leave this topic. One is, would you ever consider implementing a 4-day work week for part of your staff, but not all of, based on role? Like, would you, or is that just too messy in your mind to do something like that?
No, I'd consider that. I think there's wisdom in a 4-day work week when it comes to manufacturing and fabrication and those types of things. I absolutely can see the power in that from a recruiting perspective, from a work-life balance perspective. And so my answer to you is absolutely. Now, in the past, have I ever considered a 32-hour 4-day work week for my team? No, I've only considered 4 10s. And I will say that just like I'm a driver without any chill, that then leads to a team of drivers without much chill. Mm-hmm. And these men and women love to work. And if you said, hey, I'm going to cut your hours back. Certainly if it was, I'm going to cut your hours back and you're not going to get paid, you're going to reduce 20%.
Yeah.
They would not like that whatsoever.
Sure.
And frankly, Meredith, I'm wondering for a lot of my team if they would really even enjoy the 32 hours a week, because a lot of these guys, especially in the field, they love to work. And if you even ask them, hey, how was your Christmas weekend, right? Where they had 4 days off. It's like, Scott, it was good. I was ready to come back. And so I kind of wonder if just the DNA and culture of our team is that they like working 5 days a week. They might work 6 days a week if they could. And that's the beautiful thing about businesses, right? Because I love that you create this amazing place for a woman that wants to work 32 hours a week, completely dominate those 32 hours and enjoy a 3-day weekend. I love to have a business where a person that really wants to work full throttle 5 or even 6 days a week has a place where they can find employment. So I think the world needs both places, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. But it is an interesting thought exercise. And that, for me, is kind of what I'm hoping people will take from this, from my point of view, is think through it just for the thought exercise. Like really, really think through what would have to change in order to offer that. What would be the pluses? Because there are really big pluses. What would be the negatives? Because those can be sizable too. And, just walk through the thought exercise. That would be what I would love our listeners to do.
Yeah. So in terms of micro action, you're challenging our listeners to take what they hear today and just dream a little bit about what this might look like in their own business.
Mm-hmm. Right. Even if they're a solo practitioner and they're thinking, I'm just starting my consulting business, I'm just hanging out my PR shield. Think about what would happen if you set yourself up to say, I work Monday through Thursday, and then I take 3 days, especially for our listeners who are listening at the really early days. Although again, Here Comes the Guide had been around for over 30 years when we made this change. So it doesn't have to be at the beginning, but it is an interesting thing to think about.
Which I think is a great segue, Meredith, to our Monday Family Business, where we talk a little bit about how our work affects our homes and vice versa. So how has this 4-day work week affected you from a personal perspective, you, Meredith, the individual?
Well, I'm going to admit something here that I went back and forth as to whether or not I actually want to talk about this, but we are committed to transparency. So I'm going to tell you, for the first year, I didn't even tell my husband that we had made the move to a 4-day work week, because I knew that he was going to say, well, then why are you working on Friday? My My husband's a union guy. He worked for 32 years at UPS. So in his mind, the idea that I might still sneak in some hours on a day that I didn't absolutely have to be working, I knew it was going to be anathema to him. So after a while, I finally did tell him, and I was like, look, but I spend that fourth. The other thing is that I use that a lot of my people, and myself included, use the Friday to get stuff done at home, but also to work on our side hustles. So my book podcast, the Currently Reading podcast, Friday is the day I do my recording. It's the day I prep for, our big show recording. So it's great to have that day that I can focus on my side hustle too. But yeah, from a home perspective, it definitely was something that I needed to navigate in a really specific way to make sure that it made sense as to why we were doing it for the company, and then why I was maybe making a little different decision for me. But we've got it worked out now.
I think that one key advantage of being a business owner, operator, and leader is the ability to decide to some extent when and where you work. I love that freedom of time and freedom of place to do my work. And Meredith, I'll admit something to you. I just really love to work. Mm-hmm. And I'll make comments about that to my team. I'll say, come in and, there'll be someone that will say something about, oh, yeah, it was a great weekend, but, back at it, in a way that implies that Monday is a little bit of a letdown. And sometimes I do it facetiously, but legitimately, I'm like, I'm really glad we're back today. This is awesome. Mm-hmm. We get to come in here and work with people we love, doing something we love. It's so interesting to me how, and I think this is probably how it's always been, but I feel like we may be veering even a little bit more towards a culture where work is a drag. And in my opinion, it doesn't have to be that way for everybody.
Right. It's kind of sad, isn't it? Because I love to work too. Yeah. In fact, I was going to say, let me tell you this, because I just thought about this particular thing. I was reading this book. It's a middle grade book that was a recommendation from someone, but suffice it to say, in this book, there are 4, when you die, you go to one of 4 realms in this book. And it's peace, pleasure, progress, or pain. Of those 4 realms, which realm would you want to go to? Peace, pleasure, progress, or pain?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Progress is where people who really like to work go.
I agree with you, but I almost said peace. And the reason I almost said that is because Melissa, my wife, and I talk a lot about the power of a peaceful home. Uh-huh. And you and I did not grow up in a peaceful home. And it's something that I've wanted for my kids dearly. And so to me, progress for sure, but peace is something that little boy inside of me yearns for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what I thought about too. I want that, but I think I probably would go to that realm of progress, just because I do love to work, and you and I are always coming up with new ways to do new and different work. It is fun, and I feel bad, but again, I don't want to say that the group of people that I work with are people who don't want to work or don't. Most of the time they are as balls to the wall on their Friday off, quote unquote, as they are any other day. They're just doing stuff that they need to do because they have a lot of things at home that they are responsible for, or again, side hustles, or, other projects, other places in their life where they want to be putting that time and energy. So, but it's a very, very interesting thing to figure out. And the other question that I was going to ask you was, but would you as an individual even really like it if your company was closed on Fridays? And I think the answer is a resounding no.
No, I just love playing the game too much. I love playing pickleball too, right? If I can play another game of pickleball or another day, I'm going to play it. Business is the same way for me. I just want to play another day, right? Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Let's get this done. And it's just a lot of fun, especially, Meredith, we put in decades towards these respective businesses. At some point, you get beyond that drudgery, you get beyond that every Sunday night, I feel like I'm going to barf. And you get to a spot where it's just it's not comfortable in a bad way, but it's comfortable in a, you can read the tea leaves and execute. And that's a sweet spot in business. And as we have listeners out there that are starting their journey or maybe in early days of their journey, just know it does get better. It doesn't get easier. You get better.
You get better. Exactly.
That's what you have to remember. And keep grinding and keep growing and keep polishing those edges until you as an operator and a leader or an owner or whatever your role is, you wake up one morning and you are the Tom Brady of your business. You know what defense they're going to roll out. You've seen it all before. You know where your hot read is, and you're going to get in there on Monday morning and you're going to score a touchdown, and it's going to be automatic.
Yep. Right. 1% better every day.
Yeah. So, Mayor, next week we got a real banger. Next week.
Oh, yes.
We got a good one. So next week's topic, fire your best performer when toxic talent has to go. This is when you have someone that produces but is not a good culture fit. Now, I think you and I have a little bit of a different perspective on some of these, some elements of this topic, but I think it's going to be fantastic. Can't wait to dive into it.
I am definitely looking forward to it. This is another topic that I feel really, really strongly about and have had to take action on. All right, that is a wrap on another Monday Next. And I think we gave people a lot to think about thinking about this 4-day week, Scott.
Yeah, and it gave me a chance to really process through some of the things that I hold dearly or some of the things about my business that I think can't change. Is it because it's what we've always done or what my industry does? Or is it legitimately the best choice for my business? And that's something today I really had to ask myself about when it came to this topic.
Right. The 4-day work week is audacious, and it is one of those audacious choices that I've been really, really glad that we've made. All right. Before we sign off, we'll remind you that if you want to find us between episodes, you can connect with me at Meredith Monday Schwartz on Instagram. And if you want to hear me talk about books instead of business, you can join me at the Currently Reading podcast.
And I'm very active on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at Scott Monday, or even better, I have a Substack at scottmonday.substack.com. And there I publish once a week about building a business, changing culture, implementing AI, and applying systems to your family and your personal life. And also, go ahead and give this podcast a follow over on Instagram at Monday Next Podcast.
If you're enjoying these conversations, tell someone about the show. Word of mouth is still the very most effective way for podcasts like ours to grow.
And you can also help us out by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and sharing the show on your socials. That's a great way for us to grab a few new listeners.
And if you have thoughts about what we discussed today, or you think we're completely right or completely wrong about something, hit us up in the DMs. We would love to hear from you.
As we already mentioned, next week we're talking about one of the toughest calls in business, when your best performer has to go because they're toxic to your culture. Mayor, I'm sure it will be 100% drama-free.
Absolutely. Until Monday next, keep being audacious.